a key member who's going to decide maybe the future of this is one of those so-called Gang of Six you hear about, Democrats and Republicans who have tried to find a middle ground here. And it's sometimes in this town a thankless task. But Mike Crapo joins me nonetheless, a Republican, on where this stands right now. Assuming, Senator, very good to have you.
Good to be with you.
Not a bead of sweat, Senator. I admire that. Is it your sense, sir, that this goes nowhere? I mean, let's say the House obviously approves it, but Harry Reid has said it's not going anywhere. Then what?
Well, it is true that it'll come over from the House tonight. I'm confident of that, and Senator Reid has said that he will immediately table it. So we may have a vote in the Senate tonight that quickly.
When you table something, you vote to table it?
That's right. It's a vote. It's a 50-50. It's a 51 vote, not a 60
vote. You guys are
vote.
big on procedure, aren't you?
Senate works through procedure. But the thing that's important to note there is that even if it's tabled, that doesn't mean that it can't be brought back off the table as a vehicle for a solution later on. And so I think it's important to note that that is the procedural mechanism being used.
All right. Without getting into the nitty-gritty, Senator, and we'll talk about the rules in your fine august body of the Senate, the 30-day waiting rules and all the rest that go beyond 30-hour that go beyond my comprehension. Is it your sense that we will have a deal on Tuesday or will not?
Well, I believe we will. Not that I could tell you what I think it will be right now, but the reason I say that is because we simply have to. If we don't, we have to give some kind of a short extension because we cannot allow the kind of consequences in our market that would happen if we don't.
Well, I have heard talk about a short extension, and I guess that means you're extending something in the hope that you're very close to something a tad more permanent, or whatever permanent is these days. Are you hearing behind the scenes that is what's going on?
Well, actually, no. In fact, nobody wants to do a short extension on either side. And I think we are still all pushing really hard to get something put together before Tuesday and get it put through both houses. And really, the conflict right now.
So you think that if we got to that point, it would be done on Tuesday? It would be that late?
It could be that late. I hope not.
Right.
But I'm not going to predict how closely we will get to that.
Now, I had Senator Mark Warner here earlier on Fox News Channel when he was doing a show there. A senator told me he thinks that you don't make that Tuesday deadline, you are in default. Now, technically, you're not unless you don't make good on a government obligation. But what do you say?
Well, first of all, I don't think default is the right word because we will not default on our debt. And even if we miss the debt ceiling increase, we have the revenue coming in to meet our debt, and we will honor it. But we will face all kinds of problems in terms of very critical obligations that we have outside the bond market that will ultimately begin to cause huge problems in the world marketplace and the view that people have of the good faith and credit of the United States.
So you don't think that's even an option or consideration?
We should
this
not
talk that the Treasury has talked about contingency plans. What of that?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of contingency plans. I've seen not just from the Treasury, but from other sources. People looking at how could you do this? There is no good way because we don't have enough.
But there is a way. But there is a way
at
least to pay the immediate, more pressing bills.
That's true.
Like bondholders, Social Security, Medicare recipients.
Exactly. That can be done, but then it gets really ugly after that. And there's a lot of obligations of our government that are going to cause serious problems if we don't meet them. And so we can go for a little while in that kind of a fashion, but not very long. And I don't think anybody on either side wants to get there.
Do you have any regrets being in this Gang of Six, whether you risk party wrath by being open to some revenue enhancements, whatever you want to call it, tax increases, your enemies say, you're finding a middle ground, trying to get us away from this the very day we're facing? It is a thankless task, isn't it?
Well, it is thankless, and you're right. The day we announced what we were doing, the knives came out.
Right away.
And it hasn't stopped. But the reality is that this is where we are going to have to end up as a country. We've got to not only deal with our debt ceiling problem, we've got to deal with our debt crisis.
Absolutely.
And in that context, we have to deal not only with spending, but with growing the economy and putting together a growth package for our nation. And that's what the Gang of Six plan does. We will be working on that and basically doing what we have proposed in one way or another at some point.
All right, Senator, thank you very much. I think it was one writer who wrote one of the few adults in the room. Very good having you, sir.
Good to be with you.
Very good. Just want to remind you, this is obviously an ongoing development. It's going to go last during the weekend, right up till the deadline. We are live in the nation's capital, not only through this week, through Saturday, of course, we're having our own special show, but again on Sunday and every day after that. On Saturday, again on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We are here until they get it done. As we're watching this, so is Senator Mike Crapo has been very very good enough to stay with us. We give him no choice because we've blocked his exit. But Senator, as you're watching this right now, it is pretty much as you indicated before. This is getting to be driven along party lines, not a single Democrat voting to support it, and a lot of anxious Tea Party freshman Republicans not eager to support it.
That's right.
Is this getting more divisive, or how would you define it?
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily that. The key number to watch is that 199 right now, and you see 29 Republicans who are sitting without voting.
That's right.
That tells you there's 29 Republicans who are trying to decide what to do. One of them just moved over to yes. And as that creeps up to the 214 or 215 number, that's when you'll hear some cheers in the House.
You know how this choreography goes. It's a little less so in the Senate, but that does happen, right? People sit back, wait to see. If you really need my vote, I'm there for you, Speaker. If you don't, I'd love to stay out of just voting against this, right?
There is a lot of that. Sometimes it's because they really haven't decided for sure how to vote, and there's other reasons that goes on as well. Sometimes they're waiting to put pressure on someone else. But you can see that there's right now about 27 who are waiting. And the probable reason for most of them is they're waiting to see if they're needed.
Will we go through the same sort of thing with the Reid measure in the Senate?
Not really. In the Senate, we have a voice vote rather than an electronic vote. In other words, we vote by voice, and senators don't like to...
So you kind of take the drama out of it.
They don't like to change their vote very often, and
right.
They can do that. They can,
right.
during the 15 minutes, change their vote, but they don't like to do that very often, and so that kind of drama is...
But regardless of whether we see it or hear it, Senator, is it going to be the same deal? Is it going to be along party lines? Because even if it's along party lines and all Republicans vote against it, a significant number of Democrats are going to vote against it, right?
Yeah, the Boehner bill.
No, I'm talking about now with the Reid measure.
The Reid measure, yes. I think that you will probably see most, if not all, Republicans vote against it because it really has some smoke and mirrors and doesn't have the enforcement it needs. And there will be a number of Democrats who vote against it as well.
All right, the Reid measure, we should explain, that's not what's up for grabs here. This is the Boehner measure. This calls for roughly $1 trillion in cuts to be followed up with more cuts of about 1.7, 1.8 trillion.
Yeah.
But again, it would leave some of the more honest cuts to a commission, as does Senator Reid's, right? So that kind of sticks some people in the crowd because it doesn't look like responsible leading.
Yeah, that's right, and that's one of the reasons you see some Republicans sitting back is they want those cuts put into place now. On the Reid bill, as you I'm sure are aware, a number of the cuts are just bogus. I mean, there's
right.
over $1 trillion of cuts that are not real at all. And then the enforcement mechanism, there's no balanced budget amendment, and there's really no enforcement mechanism to be sure that the ones that aren't completely illegitimate are somehow achieved in out years.
Okay, Senator, thank you very much. See, I knew by blocking your exit, you had no choice but to stay here.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Senator Crapo.